Safaricom is bringing the stock market to millions of mobile wallets across Kenya, allowing everyday users to buy and sell stock directly through M-PESA. Meanwhile, in Ethiopia, we're seeing the unveiling of Africa's first unmanned police station. Is this the peak of efficiency or the beginning of a surveillance state? On the flip side, Chowdeck is facing a price transparency lawsuit that could reshape accountability standards across the food industry in Africa. And Jumia has pulled the plug on Algeria, a cold reminder of just how brutal e-commerce is in Africa. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tech Tides Africa podcast. My name is Karen Maina, coming to you from Kenya, and joining me is Kelvin. Good morning, Kelvin. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing well. The weather is a bit gloomy here in Nigeria, but I'm always looking forward to the podcast to talk tech with you. So, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. As farmers in Kenya, we're celebrating the rains have started. So I'm looking forward to a good harvest. For those people who may not know, I am a farmer at heart. So that's always exciting for me. And I'm looking forward to getting into some exciting developments that are happening right now in the tech space. And starting us off is Safaricom. We constantly go back to Safaricom, which is one of the bigger technology companies in Africa. And they have launched a product called Ziidi Trader that enables users to buy and sell stocks directly through M-PESA. And they have kind of integrated with the Nairobi Stock Exchange. And so users can go on M-PESA app and look for stocks that are interesting to them and buy them without needing any integration with brokers or intermediaries. They can just do it directly, which I think shows us something that has been happening where fintechs are trying to increase the amount of products, the portfolios that they're offering to clients. Embedded investing is clearly becoming something that is big in Africa as we see more and more people try to get financially stable and independent. The only thing I have to say is the app doesn't offer education for it. So you have to educate yourself, and then they only offer the platform for you to do it, which might be a setback because not very many people in Africa understand how finance works. And if you're trying to make this the common Mwananchi's platform, they might need to find a way to educate that common Mwananchi on what happens on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. So that's just my thoughts. I'd like to hear what you think, Kelvin.
Yeah, I agree with your points. They would at some point have to find a way to educate people since it's just a new feature. It will take some time before they get around to that, I hope, because you're trying to reduce the barrier for entry when it comes to stock trading. Right, that's what they are doing. We have seen fintechs in Nigeria do that as well. They brought the feature, then they brought the education around it. So maybe that's a similar flow that M-PESA will do. I did find it interesting because it just reminded me of trends that I've seen with Nigerian fintechs doing the same thing as well. It would take some time, but eventually they would get to the education of it, I believe. But on the other side, it reduces the barrier for entry because I don't know about in Kenya, but in Nigeria, if you want to buy stocks by yourself, it's a lot of forms, a lot of back and forth and things like that. For me, I wouldn't want to go through that route, but these fintechs have made it easier to be able to invest in stocks and things like that. So overall, it's a plus, but I understand your concerns with education.
Yeah, I think a couple of years ago when I was very much deeper in tech, I was working in a tech organization. One of the biggest trends that we were seeing was convergence. And I think we are continuing to see that trend. And here we're seeing a convergence of telecom, fintech, and the capital market for the convenience of the consumer. And I think it's something we will continue to see across different industries, not just finance, a convergence of products and industries for the convenience of consumers. So I do agree with you that this is a great step forward. Personally, I am on the Ziidi Trader platform, and I am looking forward to doing some trading conservatively as I also learn, because I'm also learning a lot on the financials front. So I'm really looking forward to seeing more convergence happening and seeing how industries come together to create convenience. So a really good step.
Yeah, it will be good to see more direction Safaricom goes with. But still on technology, we're going to Ethiopia. We don't get to talk much about Ethiopia, but we're talking about them big today because they have launched a smart police station to digitize law enforcement. It's part of a broader effort to digitize their public sector by 2030. So they have started with this smart police station that allows people to basically report crimes or grievances without any human interaction. Now, it sounds very cool, it sounds very sci-fi, but in reality, I don't know what the culture like is in Ethiopia, but I know in Nigeria, we love to have that human interaction. So when you're completely removing that human interaction, there are positives because there's no bias, there's no bribery and corruption with technology. But the other side, you're losing the human interaction. So I'm not sure how I feel overall about this, especially in the area it is applied, like something as sensitive as a police station. But I guess we'll see how it turns out. I don't know. What do you think, Karen?
I was really shocked when I saw this. To be honest, I'd never even thought of AI being used in this way. So it was a very pleasant surprise. First of all, before I talk about the benefits and how I look at this is the second story we have seen this month of government using AI. So it's very interesting to see government technology improving in the African continent. Last week, we saw Kenya Revenue Authority using AI to make sure everyone is paying their taxes. Now we're seeing the Ethiopian government using AI in police stations. Last year, we talked about Rwanda using AI in their healthcare systems. So very interesting to see governments embracing technology in this way. Now, on to what Ethiopia is doing. I think there are some significant benefits to this. One of the biggest issues with police in Africa is staffing costs, our ability to pay our policemen well. They are very many, and it seems the budget is never fair towards them. So this begs the question of, can we reduce the number of policemen that we use and then pay the ones that we have really, really well? Are we seeing the beginning of fewer policemen with AI agents that are helping them get the work done? Could this be a solution for corruption, as you were saying, with fewer human interventions and possibilities for corruption, which is a big issue, not just in Africa, I think across the world. So can we begin to see those advantages across the police in Africa? So I think those are very important benefits. Would it improve service accessibility and response times? Because sometimes it's very slow. Even just the process of reporting something, you can be in line for hours. And I'm waiting to see whether this is the beginning of us even being able to do some of these things on our phones, like reporting a crime or filing a complaint and just doing it on your phone from wherever it is you are, accessing any records that you need without needing to go to the police station. So I do think that there are some important benefits to this kind of model and approach to policing in Africa and across the world. However, there are a couple of issues that do come up. Number one, when you go to the police and you're reporting something, there's them investigating and that human touch where they're able to tell whether this is something real or not. There's also the issue of ethics in AI. I think we have not yet understood what kind of ethics are required when it comes to the use of AI. Now we're talking about data privacy here. There are very sensitive information when it comes to the police. Is it possible for someone to just accuse you falsely? What would be the investigation process like? Does it open up possibilities for abuse? And what are the ethics around using this kind of thing? So I think there are very many questions that still need to be answered when you look at this model. But I do think it's a positive move in a lot of ways, but it requires a lot of thought around it, a lot of procedure around it, a lot of policies that need to be created around it. And I don't know how long that would take. That's where my mind goes.
Yeah, you made a lot of points there. So basically, give it a year and we'll see.
Give it a year. I think we need 10 years.
Maybe it's something that we review every year on the podcast to see how it's going. We'll have an episode where we'll come back and be like, oh, this story, how is it going?
Absolutely. Moving forward, Chowdeck price transparency lawsuit. This is very personal to me because recently I was using Glovo and I realized there's a restaurant I go to, and when I go and order the food myself, the price is 270 shillings. But when I order on Glovo, the price is 380 shillings. So they add about 110 shillings. And I wasn't sure what that was about. But the story on Chowdeck kind of makes me wonder because Chowdeck is currently being sued by a gentleman called Dolapo Adedeji. I hope I'm saying it right. He says that they had some misrepresentation to the true cost of meals purchased through their platform. According to him, while the company presents delivery and service charges as the only additional cost that is borne by the consumer, it inflates the base price of food items without clearly or transparently disclosing this markup. He says he ordered food through the platform and he realized he knows the charges that the restaurant has, and then he realized there was a markup and he expected that there would be a change in quality or quantity of the food, but that wasn't the case, and so he filed a lawsuit. And I think this sets a precedent. I think this has been a gray area, and I don't think many consumers know, for myself included. Now I'm going to start checking the places where I like to order and seeing whether there's a markup, because there seems to be one that most consumers are not aware of.
I think it's something I have known because before Chowdeck, there was Jumia Food. And it's something I noticed on Jumia Food, and now Chowdeck and Glover as well have the same thing. But I kind of understand the issue Dolakpo has raised because you don't know except like you're really paying attention to prices and doing that comparison. Then it's something you, for convenience sake, you just order and move on. I remember one time I was using Chowdeck and then I noticed that they also do it. It wasn't as much as the 25% to 30% increase as stated in this particular case, but I noticed the markup. So I believe this case is making the rounds because it has a lot of broader implications when it comes to how these food delivery apps operate. It seems they are kind of passing the charges that they would put on the restaurant to the customers. And that seems to be maybe the only rational explanation of this additional markup. But yeah, that's why we have the legal system to figure this out. So just like some of our other stories on the podcast, when it comes to the legal situation, it does take a while to come around again. I think last year we talked about the paystack Zap and Zap Africa story that became a legal story. I haven't heard anything about that. It's been a year at this point. So not sure how long this would take, but yeah, it does have broader implications.
Yeah, because consumer protection is very important, especially in the retail space when you're dealing with the common mwananchi. B2C requires a lot of consumer protection because unlike B2B, where you're dealing with professionals who are very aware of their rights, it's very easy to take advantage of B2C clientele because not everyone is aware of their right as a consumer. So I think this, as you said, has very deep implications, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it will be handled and the ripple effects across the industry.
At the very least, hopefully we can get some more transparency at the end of it. But yeah, we'll see. Still on commerce or quick commerce, Jumia has left Nigeria. Not Nigeria, they can't leave Nigeria. If Jumia leaves Nigeria at this point, yeah, that's their biggest market. They, they have left Algeria, I should have said, to focus more on still profitability. We talked about it last year on the podcast. They were leaving several countries last year. This year, it seems the first one on the list is Algeria. They disclosed this on their latest financial report for 2025. as they anticipated, it had some negative effects because their stocks have been going down since last week. But in the long term, they believe it will be a better strategy for them. And the goal, as we have seen for the last year or 2 years at this point, is profitability at all costs. So any market that is not working or delivering returns in a way that helps the business to be profitable, it just cuts out that market. It's interesting we are seeing this correction with startups in Africa, where at the beginning, the goal was to scale to several countries as fast as possible. And now we are seeing startups focus more on profitability and sustainability. So yeah, the industry seems to be maturing.
Yeah, the love of your life, as usual. I do like the focus of Jumia on operational efficiency, making sure that their operations are efficient and the investments have a worthwhile return. We've talked about this before, Kelvin, which is that the problem with the African market is that it is so vast. You would think that you have captured the East African market and understood what drives them. But then when you go to West Africa, they are driven by something completely different. And one of the things I am realizing is that Northern Africa, being so deeply influenced by the Arab culture, has very different outlook and requirements as a consumer. That's something that I'm beginning to realize. And I think a lot of countries are still figuring out how to capture this market and how to understand this market. But I do think that the African market is so different based on different regions. And even within those regions, the countries that are there, you might find a lot of differences within the things that they require. There's not a clear uniformity. And so when startups come in and rush to expand, they then begin to realize that their strategies for each country have to be quite different. And that can be a challenge. And I think that's part of the things that Jumia is looking at now on a more critical level, where it's saying, all right, which of these markets that we've tapped into actually make sense for our operations? Now, when I looked at Algeria, it says 2% of, I believe, the goods that are coming through Jumia are in Morocco. So it makes me question, what is it exactly that they are looking at in terms of where to stay and where to exit? I don't know at the moment. It's a good question to ask. What is it that they're looking at? What are the markers that tell them this is a country to stay in and this is a country to leave? Is it just profitability? Is it the capacity to expand? Is it their understanding of that market and the confidence that they can capture a bigger percentage? I do think that as founders and tech professionals expand across the region and even outside of Africa, they need to understand what are the markers that are important for them in terms of expansion and staying within this specific markets before they move into those markets to protect their return on investment. So that's something that comes to mind at the moment, that the African market is just a giant, especially when it comes to things like retail, logistics. We have so many challenges that can knock a startup off its feet. And so understanding which markets will actually offer you the margins that make sense for you might be something to look into before you aggressively expand.
Yeah. I mean, Africa is a continent, over 1 billion people with different cultures. So sometimes when we think about the African market, I guess it's limiting in that sense. To your point, that you may forget or you may assume wrongly that the people over here are very similar in the things they like and preferences and things like that. But it isn't the case, as many entrepreneurs are finding out. Culture, bias, there are many things that play a factor when it comes to these things. Jumia, they have been in several countries for long enough. They should have enough data to make these decisions on where they stay in and where they live. I believe this is a data-driven approach they have used because they have just been around for a long time, over a decade at this point. And of course, they are thinking of competition from platforms like Temu and Shein. So yeah, they have to really know where they are putting their money in. So yeah, they have made this decision to leave Algeria, and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I do think what you're saying about competition is playing a big role. I saw something on TikTok, someone saying that God created the earth and everything in it in 7 days, but everything else is made in China. So facing competition from Chinese companies is a big challenge because they're manufacturing everything, at very good price points. So I do see what you're saying. Now, if Jumia is the love of Kelvin's life, solar is the love of my life, and Sun King is expanding beyond solar. They have been creating clean cooking products on a pay-as-you-go basis for low-income families. Now they have moved into smartphones and cooling appliances as well. So they have fridge freezers that are solar-based and they come with their own panels. And they also have Android smartphones that are for off-grid users. Very interesting move from a single product to a household infrastructure company. They're leveraging the networks and the clients that they already have, because a client that needs clean cooking products and is off-grid and is using solar-based cooking products will probably want a solar-based refrigeration system, will probably want a smartphone that they can use off-grid that is run by solar. So it's a very interesting move. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, Calvin, because I know that Nigeria has a major energy problem. Kenya itself has, I think, about 22% of our population doesn't have access to electricity. I don't know what the percentages are in Nigeria. And what do you think about this kinds of products for the market there?
I have a lot of thoughts on this particular story.
Okay.
So I'll try to go over them one by one. Anytime I see Sun King in the news, they remind me of one company here in Nigeria that was doing something similar in the early days when solar adoption, especially this pay-as-you-go model, it wasn't so popular then, but it was beginning to pick up steam at the time, and they were doing it as well. But now, in 2026, when you talk about solar solutions, you don't really hear their name. I wouldn't call the name of the company, of course. But I wonder if they could have been like the Sun King of Nigeria. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. But what Sun King is doing is basically trying to go into new markets, right? So it's smartphone, it's clean cooking, and just basically still using a similar model, the pay-as-you-go model, to take that upfront cost from the consumer and get recurring revenue that way. It's interesting because they're actually tackling a couple of problems. First, smartphones. Last week on the podcast, we were talking about Namibia and 4G technology and how they are still trying to get more people using 4G. And one of the major challenges is that 4G devices are expensive. And then this week, we are seeing Sun King is trying to create their own smartphones that people can pay gradually instead of that whole upfront cost. And then I'm thinking, maybe this could be a solution for Namibia and clean cooking as well. Last week, we talked about Cocoa Networks, a startup that shut down due to a couple of issues. But now Sun King seems to almost like immediately be tackling that problem as well to see whether they can make it profitable. So yeah, there are a lot of things that Sun King is doing at the moment. They are doing new things, but not completely new things. They are still using a similar business model while they are doing new things. So yeah, it's very cool to watch as they keep growing and growing.
Yep. As you were talking, two things came to mind. Number one, these phones are being assembled in Kenya, in Kiambu County, which is very exciting for me. And I believe as a podcast here, we really get excited when things start being created within the continent because it solves different issues like employment and so many other things. It boosts our economy. So that number one was really interesting for me. Number two, they started an early rollout in Nigeria of the power freeze, the solar powered fridge freezers, and they are being very helpful for food vendors. However, they also double as a charging hub for your laptop and your lights. So I think they're doing some really smart moves, and I'm looking forward to learning and seeing where they go in the future, because as you said, they are creating different products, but all of them are connected in that they are solar powered, and green energy is the focal point of everything that they're doing. And they're trying to see how many products can we bring into this clean energy portfolio that we have. So I think it's a very interesting company, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they do in the future.
Yeah, very much interested to see what they do. Maybe talking to the founder, one of these days. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yes, please. That is a man I want to talk to.
All right. Scoot Technology is launching smart electric tuk-tuks in Kenya. And for the Nigerians, we call tuk-tuk keke napep. Basically a tricycle vehicle. And they are launching this. It allows the riders to be able to swap out batteries instead of waiting for them to charge. They are using Sun Mobility's battery swapping technology. When I first saw the story, I was wondering how it would work. But then as I thought about it, it does make sense. These vehicles usually move between short distances. They don't really go very long distances. So it's kind of predictable, like their daily path. So this way you can estimate how much charge you would need, then know how many battery swaps you need, optimize how you do that swapping and keep the work going. So yeah, it's something that when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're seeing a lot of interest and a lot of movement in the electric vehicle space lately. I think a few weeks ago we were talking about and saying we never envisioned seeing this kind of growth this fast within the context of our continent. And we saw electric bodas or kekes being done in Nigeria. I'm seeing a lot of them now here in Kenya as well. And now we're seeing the tuk-tuk get into that conversation as well. And it makes me wonder, one of the biggest challenges that we have discussed on this platform, Kelvin, has been logistics and that last mile delivery. And it makes me think perhaps this can be a really good solution to that problem, where number one, the tuk-tuk and the bodas become a lot more affordable. We begin to see financing models that allow drivers to get that. And also we begin to see companies create more models like what Glovo has done, where there's that last mile delivery system using people on a contract basis or a freelance basis, where people have bought this devices and they're simply doing that last mile delivery and seeing how that will impact logistics in this continent. So it's a very interesting thing to see how the affordability of it, how the accessibility to it will affect logistics in different countries. It's very interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing that, but also to see what kinds of opportunities in fleet management, in battery swapping infrastructure, in financial models, what kind of opportunities will show up and that founders and tech professionals will take advantage of as we see this new industry across the world. I think how they'll be able to take advantage of the changes that come as a result of the growth of this industry. So it's a space that I'm beginning to take a keen interest on because it seems to be constantly on the news lately. Perhaps it's because of how new it is. Perhaps it's because it's the future. It's where energy is moving towards. Renewability is the buzzword at the moment. So makes me think a lot about whether we will see a lot more logistics companies go for the long run, where we've always said logistics is where startups go to die. I wonder if this will improve that. And it's something that I look forward to seeing unfold over the next few years.
Yeah, electric mobility is very fascinating as a whole. And like you said, it's relatively new, even globally. What we are seeing now is several people thinking about this space and thinking about applications for electric mobility. And we are just seeing a lot of them tackling the challenge or using it in different ways. And this tuk-tuk is one of the ways we are seeing. And I'm sure other people will think about it. maybe in logistic companies at some point we'll start thinking about it. I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it's there yet, especially in somewhere like Nigeria. Maybe we need more mobility companies solving other problems in Nigeria, for example, first, and then they build the infrastructure that they can now outsource to logistic companies because they are looking for more sources of revenue, for example. Think that can be when you start to see logistic companies taking a look. But we'll see. That's the beauty of technology. You don't know until you sit and think, okay, how can we use this technology, and ideas start to come. So I wasn't on the electric vehicle bandwagon previously. I was pretty much on the fence. But like you said, we keep seeing more and more of these stories. And yeah, I think I'm about to jump on the bandwagon now. So yeah, let's see how the next couple of years play out. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Digitize Africa podcast. Remember, leave a comment or share with your friends. We'll see you next Thursday at the same time and place you get your podcast. Until then, stay well.